I've been an intern here with the Historical Society and working with the city of Eudora as well since January. And those of you I haven't got to know yet, I look forward to getting to know the rest of you, because surely we always have tons of projects we can be working on and lots of other collaborative ideas we can be working on down at the museum. But basically, I think I'm here tonight to talk to you about 3 different grants that I'm currently in the process of writing with, for this task force. It's called the Douglas County Cultural and Natural Heritage Task Force. And they basically have about $350,000 set aside to preserve the history of the county. And we're in the process of writing 3 grants. One is a minor grant. It's with the Lawrence Preservation Alliance. And that's basically just to nominate a couple buildings in town on the National Register of Historic Places. That includes the B'nai Israel Cemetery, just south of here, which Dr. Katzman spoke of when he was here in March. And then the building that Sue Pearson owns, 707 Main Street, which is currently design surveys. It's a really ornate looking blue and pink building on Main Street there, which is pretty neat. So basically, because we want to get more buildings in Eudora on the National Register, because right now the only building on the National or State Register is Sue's house, the Pilla House. So we need to get more on the register. Another small grant that we're writing is just to bring some signs to like the buildings on Main Street, sort of like when you're walking down Mass Street in Lawrence. There's all these nice bronze signs that sort of tells about the history of each of those buildings. We're writing a grant to try to do that. But then I guess the big grant we're writing involves, it's called a major grant. You can write a major grant as well, upwards of $180,000. And what it is, or what it's for, is that there's this building on Main Street that we're interested in, trying to make into our new museum. If you remember last year, the city had some interest in trying to buy the old Pilla store, because the current owners were looking to sell. So we were thinking that we were going to write this grant to try to buy that store and then maybe get some money from the city to try to renovate it and fix it up. That kind of fell through. Doesn't look like the city could support that much money, and a lot of other things happened. So just by chance, I was at this meeting once, and I happened to meet Pam Staub, who used to be Pam Treffs, who grew up here in Eudora. And so she was related to the Treffs family that owned the buildings at 720 and 722 Main, which currently are unoccupied for good reason, because the interiors are in desperate need of renovation. But so basically, she proposed donating those buildings to us, free of charge. And then what we're doing now is we're in the process of writing a grant that would get money to renovate the interior of the buildings. Now, this has all kind of happened within the last month. It's all been kind of very, been hitting us kind of really quickly here. But basically, our mindset right now is that Pam could donate the buildings to the Historical Society. She has to do that for tax purposes. She has to donate to a nonprofit. Then we would write a grant to cover the renovation work on the interior of the building, and the interior needs a lot of renovation work. It's basically dirt floors inside. Structurally, I think the building is okay. It's sound. We've had some architects look at it. They say it's safe, it's sound. It's just, it needs electrical work, it needs plumbing, it needs all sorts of stuff. The exterior looks really nice, actually. Pam, a couple years ago, spent $50,000 sprucing up the outside of the building. So when you're walking down Main Street, it looks nice. They're the buildings that are, one of them's a really kind of tall building and narrow, and it's yellow, and then there's a brick building right next to it. Those are the 2 buildings we're talking about. And they're actually like connected on the interior, so it's all one big room. So right now, if we get the grant, which might still be a big if, I'm not really sure. The grant's due next week. We're still writing it. We'll get that money to renovate the interior, and then the city has pledged a lot of support as well. Just last Monday on the 12th, I was here and I was talking to the city council, just kind of mentioning all these ideas, and they were generally supportive. The city would help us in terms of covering all utilities, like they have been for us down at Nottingham. Utilities have been taken care of. They would also, there's a bunch of other fees associated with sort of renovating the building, just I guess like connecting sewer and other kinds of fees. I'm not really sure of the details, I guess, but the city pledged its support. And I think what we'd do eventually is we'd somehow work out an agreement where the city would slowly assume ownership of the building. But basically, we would put it in contract that the Historical Society could always use that building as a museum. Because that's really what Pam wants. She kind of wants to get rid of these buildings because they're becoming a bit of a burden to her. And she can't rent them out or anything because they're not up to code. And so I think she just kind of wants to put them up for good use, for community-centered or public service-centered use. And really what museum. I think it's her mindset, which would be wonderful. And I think really needed for us because our new home out at Nottingham, which I encourage you all to stop by sometime at, is pretty nice. I mean, it has air conditioning, it has water, it has everything we need. The only problem is the school district is still actively trying to sell that land because they want to redevelop it and make something else there. So if and when that happens, once again, we'd be out of a home just like we're out of a home when they demolished the old middle school. So I think this would be a really good fit if all this happens. It still might be a few big ifs, but we just kind of figure what the heck, let's pursue it anyway. There's this money available. And so I think it would be a wonderful spot for the museum. I think it would be really beneficial to have a museum downtown. It's sort of what the city wants to do because it was really trying to revitalize its downtown. It's just better in as the business sense. I'm told it helps economic development. It's, I think, better in sort of a community identity sentiment. It would sort of bring the history downtown, which is where it should be. So it'd just be a really, and it's a really neat building. It's a really old historic building. It goes back to 1883. It served a variety of purposes. It was actually the post office at one point. It started off as Yankee Fuller Hardware before Yankee Fuller moved. And it was in the Treffs family for about the last 100 years. So that's sort of the big grant we're writing. It's still kind of just hit or miss, like who knows what will happen, but within the next week we'll get this grant finished, and if we get the money, we'll start renovating the building, I think, in 2012, January 2012. And hopefully move in within a year, I think, is the thought process. So, there's a couple other things I guess I should announce. Eudora Fest is in a couple of weeks, and we've been talking about what to do at Eudora Fest. You have to pay some kind of fee to rent a booth, so I don't think we're going to do that. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to open the museum up, and we're just going to hand out some flyers to people on Main Street or wherever Eudora Fest is held to try to attract them to the museum. Recently I've been working, the city is doing some kind of new website as well as some kind of app for mobile phones, for cell phones, and I've been working with them. I'm not really sure. I should probably know more about it, but I really don't. There's some kind of historical app they're adding where if you can, I was taking pictures of all these historic sites and giving them information so you can, I guess, access that kind of history now on your phone. I don't have technology to do that, so I'm just, maybe if someone out there has a really nice phone, they can look it up for me sometime and I could find out what that is. I brought some really cool maps that we got from Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area, which is an entity we've been working really closely with the last few months. And they're out of Lawrence, and they're a real great organization that tries to unite the history in eastern Kansas and western Missouri. So I encourage you all to take a map over there on that table. And I think that's about all I have written down. So if anybody has any questions, I guess, about sort of what I just spoke about or the grants that we're writing, feel free to ask, I guess.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks, Sue. And I appreciate, I've been working a lot with Sue as well because she's been a great help with, we're writing the grants with, at 707 Main, the design survey store, which is a really cool building. I think it's one of the most attractive looking buildings on Main Street. It would be really wonderful if we could get that nominated to the National Register, I think. I like Sue because she gets it, because I got actually some resistance with people that didn't want to put their buildings or homes on the National Register. I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there that they wouldn't be able to renovate their homes, which I think really isn't the case. I mean, you have still a lot of freedom over what to do with the property. It's just they try to preserve the original integrity of the structure somewhat. So that's what I like. We've got to get more people out there to understand what the National Register is all about, I think. But anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Ben failed to mention that, at the last meeting I told you we were put in for 2 grants. One was for the Kansas Humanities. They had a tour from Smithsonian that we were going to try to get to come to Eudora. We didn't get it.
Frickin' Baldwin got it.
Baldwin. Also, then we've been put in a grant from Douglas County for $10,000 starting next year. We got that.
We have got something.
That's good, that's good. That's great.
So we get $10,000 from Douglas County starting next year. So we're gonna buy some computers and stuff for the museum with it.
Okay, anything else? Well, thank you, Ben, thank you, John, program. Thank you for coming.